Hello, my name is Nathalie Yuen. Welcome to my course, Survey of Psychology, Psych 100, CRN 55669. This course is an introductory level course that focuses on providing students an overview of psychology. My course design utilizes backwards design as it is a content-based course. And so what I did was, in designing the course, I looked at what were the student learning objectives, what was the material that we had to cover in the course, and what would be the most effective way to do this in an online environment. One of the major challenges that I faced was taking my in-person course and translating it to an online environment. And so I have been using Laulima since we started using it a couple of years ago, and as the tools have gotten better, I've found that my course design has changed to match some of the tools. And so I've also tried to use some problem-based learning in terms of presenting scenarios to the students, and then also trying to create a sense of community within the website and within the class in order to have the students be able to interact with each other like they would in a face-to-face environment. Course delivery. When you log into the course site, this is what you're greeted with. So on the left-hand side, we see important dates. So this is a snapshot of what's up and coming in the course. You happened onto my course right when we're at a testing point, and so these weekly updates are a guideline as to what topics should be covered should you need a little bit more structure. And then also we have a snapshot of what's happening with the rest of the semester. So there's 3 more topics that we'll be covering. As you can see, there's another test and then a portfolio project. All of these play into the total points for the final grade. In the right-hand side, we have recent announcements. So these are also a way for you to keep track of what is happening in the course and upcoming deadlines, as well as a way to keep students focused on track. I also utilize a chat room, which this automatically feeds into the home page. And so the design of the course is primarily based around this first page that students will see when they log into the course. Now, I've played around with some tools, and ultimately I've ended up with 5, and I'm pretty proud of that. So within the tools that students use in my class are the announcements tool, discussions and private messages, the chat room, tasks, tests and surveys, as well as the gradebook. And so just as a brief overview of the different tools, I've taken several of the other tools and combined them within the announcements. And so what we have here is not only announcements about upcoming deadlines, as well as any other news regarding the course, for example, when assignments have been returned. I also have the course materials embedded here in the announcements. So the syllabus, other resources, an overview of the site itself with the different tools, and then here's a syllabus you can download yourself. I also have an overview of the different assignments here. The primary assignment is this portfolio project, and so here's an overview of what that project looks like. The heart and soul, I would say, of the class is the discussion and private messages tool, where students participate in asynchronous discussions focused on the topics. It is modular, so in the first 4 weeks or so of the class, we focus on 4 or 5 concepts, 4 or 5 chapters from the textbook, and then so on and so forth with the following tests. The chat room provides a place for students to participate synchronously with each other, so when they're online at the same time. I also hold virtual office hours here in the chat room. In tasks, tests, and surveys, this is where they submit their portfolio assignments, as well as feedback assignments, which help them access the course better, as well as tests. So I've taken the assignments tool and tests and quizzes and combine them into one place. And then here with the gradebook, this is where students are able to have an overview of their grades and to see where they are in terms of their total point value. So that's the course delivery. Interaction and collaboration. So this is where I will be discussing how the students not only interact with the material but also interact with each other and then interact with me. I think one of the easiest places to start is the chat room. So every week I have virtual office hours where students are invited to chat with me. I am online and I wait for their little blue dot to pop up next to their name, which usually occurs here after, I don't know, a minute or so. There are several different rooms available for synchronous chatting, and I am a Harry Potter fan, so there's a little bit of a theme there. But the idea is that there's a main meeting place. There's also my office for course-specific questions, meetings, and then also a place for students to interact with each other, kind of a free-for-all room. In terms of asynchronous discussion, which is what the class is based primarily on, is the discussion and private messages tool. And so at the beginning of the semester, we start off with an orientation. There are 2 first day of class activities where students are invited to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about themselves. And so the questions relate around not only what should we address them as on the discussion board, but also why they're in the class, general icebreaker questions, which I also use in my face-to-face class. And so, as you can see, students were posting here as a way to get to know each other. And then throughout the rest of the course, they are encouraged to post on the discussion list if they have any questions regarding the course. And then also, this is where I treat this as a meeting place to discuss the content of the course. And so there are activities that span usually 2 to 3 weeks where the students interact with the material, and then they also interact with each other. So for example, in this topic about classical conditioning, this is the first topic here is the instructions for the discussion. And so we have a little YouTube video with our friends from the office, and then the instructions for the post. This is where students are working together with the material, so they are reading a scenario and then identifying the different components of the scenario. And so as an example, we see that here's the scenario, and then each student in the first week was asked to only identify one part of the scenario so they could work together as a team to identify the different components of the scenario. And then I also interact here in terms of helping them, either congratulating them for making a correct identification or encouraging them to pursue the information a little bit further if they're not quite at the level of understanding that they should be at. There are also some groups where they can meet, which I'm not a part of as a student, so I guess we won't be looking at those. But in this particular discussion, part of the discussion required them to not only review different scenarios, but then also to discuss those different scenarios as a group, and then to reflect on not only the scenario themselves, but then also what they saw other people identifying as a group. And so this is where we really see the students coming together to work as teams in order to look at the information. And then I also incorporate these YouTube clips in terms of getting some multimedia in there so they're not just looking at the written instructions. Course design learning materials. In terms of the structure of the course, again, the focus is on the home page, so on the first page that the student sees after they log in. Again, on the left-hand side, we have the important dates. Now, these are suggested topics and suggested weeks. The only hard dates that are in the course design are when the discussions close, the portfolio assignments, and the tests. And so, as in a modular format, I would hope that students feel comfortable enough to take the flexibility of the course to mold it to what works best for them. Instead of doing it week by week, if students have some weeks that are busier than others, there is flexibility in terms of when they cover the content. And so in the discussion and private messages, again, these topics are based on the concepts for each test, and they are organized by tests. And so in the final test of the semester, we're looking at personality, we're looking at social psychology, disorders, and then therapy. And so it is required that students do review the book and review the information in the book, and then apply the information from the book to the discussion. We also, at the very beginning of the semester, the students are sent an email to their UH email account, which is just a copy of this first announcement, which directs right off the bat that students should be checking the announcement section. And so even though the discussion and private messages tool is where students interact with each other, the announcements section is really where students are guided and directed as to what they need to be covering. And so the first announcement is going to give you an overview as to what is going to be covered in the course and how the structure of the course is going to operate in terms of announcements, discussions and private messages, and tasks, tests, and surveys. And then also there's a summary of the course materials, very straightforward. I tried to reduce the number of tools that they're using. And then there's also a link to the publisher's website. And there's an overview here for the main assignment, which is the portfolio project. It is 5 separate projects with the same criteria, and so there's the different topics that are posted here, as well as a rubric, and then also a brief overview in terms of a movie. So this will show them. Let's see if we can jump ahead here. It is primarily slides with my voiceover. So I've streamlined the course to really focus again on the learning material being embedded within the discussion and private messages, and then also with announcements. So the announcements will keep the students up to date with reminders here at the top, and then any other details about upcoming assignments and deadlines. Assessment and learning outcomes. Students in this course are assessed using discussion and private messages, as well as a portfolio project and tests. So starting with discussion and private messages, for each module, so each section, there are 4 or 5 topics, and students in this case were meant to identify different elements of the scenario. They are interacting with each other and then again interacting with me. I do try to provide as timely feedback as I can. So here we have, there was almost a day that elapsed in between my post, student's post and my post. and then you can see some other more frequent interactions occurring in here, especially as the deadline nears to completion. I do try to be online more often and review the discussion board more often, as that's when my students seem to be reviewing the discussion board as well. In terms of the different projects that are due, we do have a portfolio project, and that is really a way for the students to look at the psychological principles that we're discussing in class, and then apply it to their own life. So the idea is that the rubric remains the same for each project, and then the topics change. So there's some consistency here. There is the process of revision, so hopefully the students will use feedback that I provide for them in order to make their subsequent projects more successful. And really, again, the heart and soul of this is that they're able to explain the psychological principle. They also provide a personal example, and then they use the principle to explain the example. And then I do encourage them not just to write a paper, but also to use some multimedia, pictures, slideshows, videos, audio, all of those different ways. There's also, the last form of assessment in this class is a test. It is a multiple choice test, and it's content-based. Course design. In terms of the visual aspects of the course, I did try to keep the course consistent throughout the whole semester, and so again, important dates here on the left-hand side. You can't miss it. It updates every week, and then as soon as the third test closes, actually all of these topics will be deleted, and then we'll just be looking at the next 4 weeks or 3 weeks going forward. Also, I'm utilizing the announcements tool because they do feed right into the home page, and so hopefully you can't miss that either in terms of if you open up this update for the current week, which is week 15, you'll see that there's a few reminders here to act as a checklist, which do match with the important dates section on the home page, and then again several details about any upcoming deadlines or questions that I think may be relevant to the week. For example, with the end of the semester coming up, I wanted to review how the gradebook works and how to calculate your total points for the course. And so you can access the weekly updates either from this home page or through the announcements page. And the weekly updates are consistent in terms of format. So we looked at week 15. If we go back to week 13, you can see again there's a bulleted list of upcoming deadlines and then other updates.
Hello, this is Nathalie Yuen, your friendly neighborhood psychology instructor.
You can go all the way
this
back
video
to
is an example of a portfolio
and see that there are weekly updates here for weeks 5, 6,
and an experience I had with a coworker.
Summary so that students can
here
quickly review and access the information that they need, as well as in the discussion and private messages there are deadline reminders and then also what module the discussion covers. So there's several different reminders. I did try to keep it pretty consistent in terms of the actual page formatting, and most of these topics follow a similar format where we have the instructions in the first topic. It's a sticky, so it'll stay at the top of the discussion, and then I try to, in the instructions, indicate what the topic title should be or the subject of the topic should be, so that when students do post their topics, they know what the format is, so they can meet the expectations of the format. And then also most of the discussions open with a little video, and then again the instructions, where they should start off with in the text, and then what the expectations are for the post, and then how many participation points are available. So with almost all of these tools, students should be able to increase and decrease the size of the font so that they can read the different messages. Learner support. So right off from the beginning of the class, I do put the focus on the announcements tool. And when I receive questions about the structure of the course or questions about navigating the course from students, I always direct them back to the announcements right from the beginning. This is where I post important information, weekly updates, as well as try to field any issues that I think might be problematic. And so hopefully the students will see the very first post that says read me first, the first day of class, and hopefully they will go there first. And so really what this does is it sets the tone for the rest of the semester. I talk about where you should go and what you should be doing, especially in this orientation period. And then I also remind them of upcoming deadlines. And so hopefully they will review this post. They will see where I say the announcement section is where I will be posting weekly course updates. And I do send out reminders to say, hey, don't forget to read the announcements. There is important information posted there. The course materials, I did include this as a resource, as a way to summarize all of the different elements of the course. Again, there's a site map, there's a link to the publisher's website, as well as the syllabus for the course. And when you open the syllabus, there's a course calendar, as well as let's see here. So here's my contact information, as well as the typical elements of the syllabus, including the calendar at the end. So there is an outline as to suggested times when you should be covering topics, as well as a general overview, so they can access that. In terms of where else you can find help other than the announcements is through discussion and private messages. So there's a whole category devoted to questions and answers where students can post their questions about the discussion list itself, the portfolio assignment, Laulima itself, the publisher's website, and then any other questions here. So you can see we had some discussions about posting on the discussion board, and then also the room of requirement here. Students are encouraged not only to ask, but also to answer questions. So here you see students helping out each other. Somebody had a question about the portfolio announcement, and then another student replied and said, this is where you can find the additional information. And so in response to the response, I did identify that the student was providing correct information, so that the original poster knew that they're not just getting incorrect information. And then I also included a little image here to help support where they can find additional information. And so as much as I can, I do include screenshots so that students do know where to find information. And I would like to use more screencasting and video conferencing if that would help students out more. The final element of support class that's built in is a touch base with students after the first week, and then in the middle of the semester, where I ask them questions about their level of comfort, how they feel that they're doing in the course, and their assessment of their own abilities to navigate the course, so that I can help them out in terms of making sure that they can access the technology that they have. Teaching innovation. What have I done with Laulima that's different? Well, the first part is that I've really thought about what tools the students use, and I've really worked on streamlining my course. In the beginning, I think I started off with 8 or 9 tools in the toolbar here, and I found that it confused students a lot, and so I wanted to adapt my course to make it the easiest and the most user-friendly that I could. And so what I did was, instead of using this worksite information as a static image or as static text that remained the same throughout the whole semester, I decided to update it weekly. And so here again we have the important dates listed here, and then my contact information here at the bottom. I really wanted the site to be a self-contained site, and so while students can contact me through email, I really encourage them to use the discussion and private messages feature so that all of the messages are contained within Laulima. I also, again, have combined several tools in order to streamline the site. I've eliminated resources and modules and fed it all into announcements, specifically for the fact that announcements feeds into the site homepage, and so when the student opens up the course, everything is right in front of them, and hopefully they won't miss it. The final innovation that I have here is the use of the discussion and private messages in terms of creating a community and having a set goal that the whole class is working towards. And so, for example, here in this post about pirates, we have the topic is a concept from the book about monocular cues. But in order for this discussion to be successful, it is student driven, and so they post pictures, and then students have to reply to their pictures identifying a monocular cue. So a visual cue you only need one eye to see depth with, and then the original poster, monitors their own topic post. So it's creating a sense of accountability, a sense of responsibility. It's trying to get students invested in the material that they have and the material that the course is covering. I'm also using a lot of popular culture within my course, again, as a way to get students invested in the course and try to hold their attention and have them really process the information. And so, for example, when we look at classical conditioning, this is an episode or a little clip from The Office where classical conditioning is being used. And so hopefully by seeing these real-world examples, the students can apply what we're discussing in the class to their own lives.